I don't think it's likely that either gets a 5th title unless they're willing to go somewhere else, because I just don't see either of those teams being capable of making a move that moves the needle in the next few years. I just don't see it, because who's the next guy that's available? Donovan Mitchell, maybe? I mean, that's the rumor. I think he's been fantastic in Cleveland. I hope he doesn't leave Cleveland.
He's going to leave.
Joel Embiid is not leaving Philly. Like, who's going to be available? Maybe it's Giannis. I don't know, but who's going to be available in the next 2 or 3 years while they're still playing at a high level?
Damn it, LeBron James is his own man. You're wearing a Lakers uniform. You are a player. You know your coach is on the hot seat. And deciding to do a podcast about games, about basketball, with specifics in mind, schemes, and how you coach and how you draw plays up. And you knew the Lakers would more than likely be looking for a coach next season is one of the most egregious things we have seen a basketball player do to a coach.
The headline sounds explosive for a reason. JJ Redick, LeBron James, locker room tension, a Christmas Day blowout, and a coach apparently saying the quiet part out loud. But the real story is a little more precise than the internet version. What the reporting actually shows is a Lakers team that got embarrassed by the Rockets on Christmas, a first-year head coach who publicly called out the group's effort, and a star-heavy roster that suddenly looked like it had no clear identity. That is the context behind the viral JJ Redick exposed LeBron conversation, and it is exactly why the clip set social media on fire. The Christmas loss was ugly enough on its own. Houston beat Los Angeles 119-96 in a game the Rockets controlled from start to finish, and the Lakers were out-rebounded 48-25 while losing their 3rd straight game, their first 3-game skid of the season. LeBron James scored 18 points in that game, but ESPN reported that he finished with a brutal -33 plus-minus, which made the outing one of the worst on-off performances in the game. That is the kind of stat line that instantly turns a normal bad night into a story about accountability. Then came Redick's post-game message, and that is where the tone changed. ESPN reported that he said, "We don't care enough right now," and the line hit because it sounded less like a coach trying to protect feelings and more like a coach fed up with the standard. He also said the team needed to make choices and that too many guys were avoiding the uncomfortable part of winning. Reuters later tied that same mindset to the Lakers' broader defensive issues, noting that they had allowed 120 or more points in 4 of 5 games before that stretch, and that Redick was stressing growth, toughness, and rebounding.
I talk schemes all the time with my friends. You and I have talked schemes on sets before. I think it's an incredible value proposition within the marketplace because nobody really does that.
That is why the internet immediately turned the moment into a LeBron story. When a coach says the group does not care enough, fans do not hear a generic message. They start asking who the coach is really talking about. And when the numbers show the team looking worse with LeBron on the floor, the conversation gets even hotter. ESPN's game coverage said the Lakers were outscored by 33 points in the 32 minutes LeBron played, which is exactly the kind of detail that gets weaponized in legacy debates. Suddenly, the talk isn't just about one game, it's about whether the roster is being held together by reputation more than production. That tension had actually been building before Christmas. Earlier in December, Redick met with Luka Dončić and LeBron James and pushed his stars to give more on the defensive end. ESPN reported that Dončić publicly agreed with the coach, saying Redick was right and that the stars needed to set the tone better, especially at the start of games. That detail matters because it shows this was not some random outburst after one bad result. Redick had already been trying to push accountability upward, and the Christmas collapse just made the message impossible to ignore. What makes this story so combustible is that the Lakers had already been exposed as a team with a defense that needed constant attention. Reuters noted in mid-December that the Lakers' defensive rating had been a problem, with the team ranking 20th in defensive rating, 23rd in fast break points allowed, and 28th in opponent three-point percentage. In other words, Redick was not inventing a crisis, he was responding to a real one. That is why his bluntness landed the way it did. He was not criticizing the team for a one-night slip, he was trying to jolt them out of a pattern. The other reason the clip went viral is that the Lakers had recently shown they could still function when they played connected basketball. Reuters reported that after the Christmas loss, the Lakers held a team meeting and a shoot-around before beating the Kings 125-101, with Redick saying it was the first game all season they won all 4 quarters. That matters because it proves the issue was not talent alone. It was consistency, buy-in, and whether the team could commit to the standards Redick wanted. When a coach is still trying to build habits months into the season, every star player gets more scrutiny. That is where LeBron enters the conversation in a way that makes his supporters uneasy. Nobody is saying he suddenly forgot how to play basketball. That would be absurd. But the criticism is that his presence can change the tone of a team in ways that are not always positive, especially when accountability gets uncomfortable. The public reaction to Redick's comments made it feel like the coach was drawing a line. Effort and structure come first, even if the name on the jersey is LeBron James. That is why the moment felt bigger than a normal post-game rant. It felt like someone in the building was refusing to treat the star as untouchable.
But at some point in time, we do have to do this, Jay. As I said to Wendy last week, we have to remember the things that we've said about LeBron James as it pertains to his brilliance, as it pertains to controlling a narrative, as it pertains to being 2, 3, 5 steps ahead of others in terms of what you're plotting and what you're planning and what have you. And then that'll raise an antenna.
And honestly, that is the real reason people are saying Redick exposed LeBron. Not because he named and shamed him in some dramatic showdown, but because he put the focus on effort and accountability in a way that made the whole team, including its biggest star, look vulnerable. The internet loves that kind of moment. It gives fans a clean villain, a blunt coach, and a giant basketball name at the center of the storm. But the more accurate reading is simpler. Redick saw a team slipping into bad habits, and he called it out publicly because he believed the standard had dropped too far. That is also why the reaction around DeAndre Ayton made people talk even more. Reuters reported that Ayton said Redick really got on us and told the team it was time to tighten up. That matters because it shows the message was not some media performance. Players knew exactly what the coach was talking about. Ayton's comment suggests the room understood the criticism, even if not everyone loved how it landed. In a locker room, that kind of message can either pull people together or expose who is and is not ready to be coached hard. What makes this especially fascinating is that the Lakers' recent stretch has shown both sides of the argument. On one hand, the team has real star power, with Luka carrying a huge offensive load and LeBron still capable of erupting offensively. Reuters reported that LeBron had improved his shooting in mid-December, and that helped take some burden off Luka. On the other hand, the defensive numbers and the Christmas collapse made it clear that offense alone was not going to save them. If the group is not locked in defensively, Redick's patience is going to keep running into the same brick wall.
And then that'll raise an antenna. We knew before the podcast ever started that Darvin Ham was on the hot seat. We knew this. Now, in fairness to LeBron James, when the news came out, hell, we celebrated it right here on this show. Oh, it's going to be great. It's mind the game. It's talking the game. I mean, they're talking basketball. This is fantastic. I mean, JJ Redick's a brilliant basketball mind. LeBron James, we know what he is. No problem. But as the podcast gained steam, and then the spotlight became more magnifying for Darvin Ham, and then you saw an Anthony Davis after game 2 against Denver talk about how lost and, we just weren't on the same page. We just seemed to be out of sync, et cetera, et cetera. We saw all of these things. Then we started having the others, and not necessarily us as a show, Jay.
This is where the legacy conversation gets messy. LeBron has built a career on control, pressure, and unparalleled production, but the modern Lakers are forcing him into a different kind of argument. It is no longer just about how many points he can score or how many playoff runs he has had. It's about whether the team around him can still be coached without bending the entire structure around his gravity. The bluntness of Redick's comments makes that debate impossible to avoid, because the coach is essentially saying that star power does not excuse bad habits. The funniest part is that the reporting doesn't actually show a Hollywood-style blow-up where Redick and LeBron come to blows in the locker room. What it does show is something more realistic and maybe more uncomfortable, A coach publicly demanding more, a team responding in ways that suggest the message was aimed at the stars, and a fan base immediately turning that tension into a referendum on LeBron's place in the Lakers' future. That's how NBA drama usually works. The truth is rarely the wildest version on the internet, but the truth is often still dramatic enough on its own.
So that has already been in the works for a while. I think that JJ actually was the perfect person to talk schemes too. Actually make a case also that depending upon who they've gotten invested by, Redbird and Fenway and companies like that, they have a lot of capital to deploy.
Equity, venture capital.
Yeah, it's Spring Hill, right? They have a lot of capital to deploy as like to a platform like JJ. So I just wanted to come to the defense a little bit that this wasn't a multi-year approach in which it was set up for JJ to then become the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, LeBron James is one of the most brilliant minds we have in the game.
Without question.
He's great. But they haven't been referencing schemes that the Lakers have employed. They've been referencing schemes around the league. So I just want to make sure that we're not inciting that LeBron's main mission by having a podcast was to undermine the likes of Darvin Ham. Watching games this year, there was a lot of personnel decisions that
And that's why this story keeps gaining steam. Redick isn't just coaching a team, he's trying to set a culture in a place where the biggest name in the room naturally shapes everything. If he succeeds, the Lakers might finally start looking like a disciplined contender instead of a talent-driven headline machine. If he fails, every tough quote will look like the beginning of a power struggle he couldn't win. The Christmas loss, the "we don't care enough" line, the accountability meeting with Luka and LeBron, and the team's defensive slump all point to the same reality. Redick is trying to pull the Lakers towards standards, even if that means making the biggest star uncomfortable. So no, this isn't really about one locker room fight. It's about a coach publicly drawing a line, a star player being pulled into the accountability conversation, and a team whose recent results made that line impossible to ignore. That's why the clip went viral. That's why people said things got crazy. And that's why the pressure around LeBron in Los Angeles keeps getting louder every time the Lakers take a step backward instead of forward. But what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below.